Welcome to the Effortless Swim podcast. I've got a very special guest today, someone who was on only a couple of months ago, but for good reason. So, Andy Donaldson, you've just completed the Ocean 7 in the quickest time ever and in the shortest amount of time ever, so within a year, and doing the entire 7 swims in 63 hours total, which was about an hour 35 quicker than the previous record before that. So, firstly, congratulations and well done. Just a massive achievement. And I can't wait to get into some of the details on the last one that you had, because it looked so bloody difficult. And yeah, just how are you after such a massive 12 months, really?
Well, firstly, thank you again, Brenton, for having me on here. It's a pleasure to chat. And yeah, gosh, it's just been such a whirlwind. I mean, obviously, I'm absolutely delighted at how it all came together and how together as a team we were able to pull off this impossible mission. But yeah, just delighted. Still pretty tired from it all. It was such a big year, but yeah, feeling really glad, and glad to still have all my limbs and to be in one piece still.
Well, I think before last time we spoke, I think you had the 3 or 4 swims to go. I can't remember exactly, but it seemed like, so you had Gibraltar and then Catalina were the 5th and 6th swims. They looked like they were fairly comfortable in the grand scheme of things. Is that right?
Yeah, they were. They were still challenging in their own ways, but more or less went to plan, which was good. The other 2 swims, so I think we spoke just after the Cook Strait in New Zealand, and obviously we were coming off a real big high there, breaking the world record. So we went into the Molokai Channel swim over in Hawaii with really buoyed by that recent success and with a fair bit of momentum, and goodness, did nature show up and have different plans for us out there. It was that was a real big swim, and then obviously Tsugaru at the end was just absolutely relentless too.
And so Molokai, would you put that up there as one of the hardest swims you did? Because is that the longest? It's 43 Ks, isn't it? So that's the longest swim, and longest time wise as well, 15 and a half hours. Talk me through that swim and what challenges got thrown your way.
Well, it was very challenging even before the swim. We'd arrived from memory, I think, on the Saturday and swum on the Sunday, so it was a very quick turnaround. Flying in the morning we arrived, we met with the skipper, and he said, Mike Twick-Smith, great guy, just said, look, tomorrow's probably our best day. Let's go for it. So very quick turnaround. Usually a lot of swimmers will fly across to Molokai Island and meet up with the crew over there. We didn't really have time, and we thought it might be easier to just take the boat across. I hadn't really thought that one through too well, and I got pretty seasick on the way over. And that's before you've even started this 43-kilometer swim, so didn't feel too great or flash going into it. But we set off the shores at Molokai around 7 p.m. The sun was going down. You're on this, tropical island in the middle of the Pacific, and it was just quite surreal, doing that. But little did we know what was to come. It turned into probably the toughest swim alongside Tsugaru out of the Ocean 7 in my own life.
And was it the conditions that really started to ramp up as you were swimming, or was it the currents? What was it there that made it so challenging?
The big challenges with that is the swell. So if you think of where Hawaii is, it's just a couple of pin drops in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and you've got no real land masses to block these rolling conditions coming in from the Pacific. So you've got these huge waves that just lift you right up and down. The swims through the night, which the reason they do that is to try swim when the winds are a bit calmer and the conditions are ideally a bit calmer too. So that's that's quite a challenge itself. In that swim, the boat sits quite a little bit in front, so you can't really see your team, and it can feel quite isolating out there. So it's just you and a kayaker. And yeah, I mean, you can do all the preparation in the world for distance and for swimming at night, but it's the psychological challenges that are harder to prepare for. And in that one, we were swimming into a pretty head-on and powerful current, and I was making a lot less ground than I'm used to. Usually on a good day, I can hold sort of 4.5 to 5 k's an hour. Out there, we were covering as little, probably a bit closer to 3 k's an hour because of the head-on currents. But at one stage, it was right down at 1,500 meters in the space of an hour, which is, taking 4 minutes to do 100 meters. And, it's so hard to hear that news. And it's, when you've got such a big, long swim at hand, knowing that you could potentially be out there for another 10 hours, it's quite it's quite brutal, and yeah, very little can prepare you for receiving that sort of news.
Is the team keeping you updated every hour with the distance that you've swum, what you've got to go? How's that normally work for you? And do you have you changed that approach over the last year or so with that more experience under your belt?
Yeah, it's a great question, Brenton. So usually I get updates on distance every hour. We started off, I think, with the English Channel, it was every 2 hours, but I wanted to be a bit more equipped with that information, even if it was, not as rosy as we'd like. With that swim, we were feeding every 15 minutes. The water temperatures were a bit warmer, I think around 25 degrees. So I was going to be sweating a lot more, losing a lot more liquids and fluids. I already take on quite a lot of feeds because I'm burning quite a lot of energy with my pace. So, but it was also an opportunity to, catch up with the team and just to make sure that we were engaging quite frequently, so that again, it provided that mental reassurance that you weren't out there alone. You didn't feel as isolated. The team were there, and we'd be seeing each other quite a lot. So, to find out we weren't covering as much distance, it was difficult, but the team kept me really encouraged and supported throughout that. And I don't think, like I usually say, these swims aren't a solo endeavor. They are only made possible by an incredible collective and a team, and they got me through a lot of those toughest times.
And swimming in the dark, so it's a long time to be in the dark, especially only having a kayaker next to you. Like, that's eerie enough, right? Just being out between the Hawaiian Islands, what feels like probably almost by yourself. Is that something that you had practiced a bit before, just night swimming, or just something you had to get used to along the way?
It was something that I'd had experience of swimming at night time. So in the Cook Strait, we swam through the night in the Derwent River Big Swim. Again, it was another nighttime swim, but I hadn't experienced that level of isolation before, where it's just you and a kayaker. I mean, if I looked up, I wouldn't have been able to see the boat. They were completely blacked out. They do that because they don't want to attract in the sharks, which are, that are attracted in by the bright lights. So yeah, it was quite tough, and I think they were cycling through paddlers every 2 hours, and I remember particularly the second guy that went out. He didn't bring any lights or sort of reflective gear, so I couldn't see him, and I couldn't see him apart from like maybe a couple of tiny glow sticks hanging off the side of his kayak. But I just saw this silhouette of a shape, and I just remember feeling so lonely out there, and it's amazing how much of an impact that something as small as that can make when you're out there in these massive channel swims.
Yeah, it makes me think of someone whose ship has sunk and they're just stranded out in the middle of nowhere. He goes, man, how do you how do you mentally get through that? That's a real challenge. So,
Mm.
so you had the Molokai swim, and then the Gibraltar swim, and then the Catalina Channel. You said they pretty much went to plan, which is great. Now, because it was all in a pretty short space of time. Those last couple of swims, wasn't it? Like those last three were almost within a month of
Bang,
each other or something?
pretty much bang, bang, bang. So Cook Strait was March, Molokai was April, Strait of Gibraltar was May. I was still pretty beaten up from Molokai. I'd got hospitalised after the Molokai swim. We'd had a real rough finish to that, which I can speak to. And then there was a month-long break in June before Catalina and Tsugaru, which were both in July. So yeah, this is it's just how it fell. That's how we'd organised it. We really we took the slots that we could get. We didn't want to. I certainly made it my. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't coming in over the top of anyone else. I didn't want to take other people's slots. It was always, we'll take whatever we can get in order to try do this in a year. And if we can do it, great. But if not, we've tried our best. And so that's something that a lot of the organisers took into consideration. And fortunately, I have a bit of speed. I have some flexibility with the way that I've set up life and how I can work remotely. So it worked out very well, and those swims fell into those places. And gosh, it was tough coming into those last two, especially. Just that accumulated fatigue, not just physically but mentally as well, certainly made it a challenge.
Did anything surprise you when you look back at the last 12 months? Anything like you knew it was obviously going to be hard and a lot of travel involved, a lot of organisation. But was there anything that really surprised you looking back?
I think my mindset certainly shifted a lot. I think coming from a competitive background where there's a big emphasis on results and times, I admittedly think that I came into it, quite focused on that and trying to break records and set these really fast times, which, 12 months ago, I was like, wow, I might be able to do this and I could do this. And it was a quick lesson. I think, things like the English Channel and certainly Molokai, they were real quick reminders that, there's a lot that goes on in a channel swim, and what really is a success. Take Strait of Gibraltar for as an example. I gave that absolutely everything. Probably put together one of my best swims, and finished about 40 minutes off the record. And there's an incredible woman who's in her 70s that only went 5 minutes slower. So it's a real leveler, swimming out in the open water, and there's so many factors that are involved in the success of a swim, or in terms of a time. Obviously you've got you have to have like almost the perfect conditions, the right swells and currents, low winds or the right winds. And so to be able to go into a swim and give it your all, I think that's where the mindset shift came. And I knew that if I'd done that, and if that was good enough to get across a channel, I couldn't really ask for more. And that certainly helped coming into Tsugaru after all the things that have been happening there with the unsuccessful attempts and people talking about the cross currents and that it was an unswimmable swim. that was the mindset I went in with. If I could give this my best, and if we're good, if that's good enough to get across, great. I can't really ask for more.
Let's jump into the Tsugaru swim. So I remember a week or two prior to you doing that swim, in some of the Facebook groups there was a lot of talk and a bit of controversy around that swim, where like it hadn't been a successful swim for quite a long time, and there was a bit of issue with boat captains like not taking people at dark, and it was only between certain times, and so there was a bit of controversy around it, and I didn't know what the situation was for you, and I didn't know the full details of it because I'm not completely in that world, but I'd love to get your take on, for those listening, like most people listening to this probably don't know what that was all about. So could you explain a little bit about what was going on, and then what your mindset was going over there, with this being your last swim, and basically no one had made that swim for a very long time?
The Tsugaru Strait is a channel in Japan. It's between the islands of Honshu and Hokkaido, and it's one of the Ocean 7 swims. So the Ocean 7, just to take a bit of a step back, was a list of swims that Stephen Monotone has put together. And, swimmers around the world, ever since it was conceptualized, have gone and tried to take on these swims and tried to complete the Ocean 7. So for me, the way it landed, Tsugaru was the very last swim that I'd be attempting in the whole of my journey. And in the lead up to it, like you'd mentioned, there'd been quite a lot of, it was very public about what had been happening there and the lack of successful crossings. So I think it was a total of 13 people that have tried it this season prior to myself. And I think 9 of them were unsuccessful, and 4 of them didn't get to get a start. So historically, there's really only been 2 associations there that have organised swims. A group called Ocean Navy, and another group that was run by the skipper. The organizer I ended up going with, a Japanese chap called Haruyuki Ishii, the Tsugaru Strait Swimming Association. So most people had in the past gone with this Ocean Navy group, and for whatever reason, things just seem to be a lot tougher this year. The Japanese Coast Guard had introduced a new rule, so I understand, where swimmers could only go during the hours of daylight, so between 4 a.m. and finishing at 7 p.m. And when you think of the Tsugaru Strait, it's a very narrow channel. It's point to point, under 20 kilometers. And it's between the Sea of Japan and the Pacific Ocean, and there's a bit of an elevation difference, so it's almost like a downhill slope. So usually the current's flowing from west to east, and it's quite powerful, reaching up to sort of speeds of 10 kilometers an hour. So the best swimmers in the world are only really holding 5Ks an hour. So it's to paint a picture, it's like trying to swim across a raging river. But at times, it really dies down to maybe about 1 or 2Ks an hour. So it can be done. And I think with this introduction of this rule, a lot of the best times to swim when the currents were at their weakest was at night time, but it wasn't possible to go. So a lot of people weren't getting across. There was a lot of upset swimmers, particularly in how the swims were being conducted over there and organised. I haven't had too much to deal with Ocean Navy. I tried to organise a swim with them. They didn't really get back to me, which forced me to go look at other options and eventually work with Mr. Ishii. But so I don't know how they operate. I've seen what I've seen online. So I'm not going to comment on it, but I know there was a lot of unhappy swimmers, and it got to a stage where there was so much happening that the World Open Water Swimming Association stepped in and started investigating the channel and the conduct of swims that had happened this season. And when that was all kicking off, it was very difficult for me and my team being out there in Japan and seeing this and reading about what had been happening to other swimmers. Obviously, it's not good for the sport when something's, when people are coming away with such bad experiences. And I was just getting bombarded with messages like, "Oh, have you read this? Have you seen this? People are saying it can't be swum. It's unswimmable. People are questioning how you organised your swim. How did you get in touch with this person? How did you do this?" And it was so difficult. Swimming a channel is one thing, and it comes with its challenges, but to see people talking about you and jump into these conclusions or assumptions without actually knowing who you are and what you've done, I found that really tough. So it was probably the toughest thing I've ever gone through in terms of all of that. Obviously, this was the last swim of my Ocean 7 journey and my pursuit to try do this all within the space of a year. So there was a lot riding on it, and I knew a lot of people would be watching us out there and keen to see how we'd go facing these challenges. And yeah, I certainly felt the weight of it before I even started.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And especially in a lot of sports, and open water swimming is no different. You are going to get opinions on either side, and people who, as you said, don't know you, people who've got no idea what the background is of you organising your swim, and people are very happy, will very quickly make accusations and say things that there's just no truth to it. And I mean, I had Olympian Brent Hayden on the podcast just recently, and he was even just saying, just some of the comments on his videos that he puts out, he finds it's hard to deal with, because people with no right basically saying oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. It's like, hang on, he's an Olympic medalist, and he's earned the right to teach this stuff. So it's just, when you put yourself out there doing something like you've done, you're going to cop criticism no matter what you do, and you can't avoid it. And even just listen to you speak, there's no ego in this for you. You're not out there doing this for yourself. It's a very selfless thing that you're doing. So it comes with the territory when you put yourself out there. With the swim, so I was following the Instagram stories that were being updated pretty regularly, and I just thought, man, if anyone's going to make it, it's going to be you. But this looks like such a bloody challenge with the currents and what you went through. So could you share just basically what happened through that swim, how hard it was and everything? Because man, it just I was shocked that you made it, really, after seeing how tough these currents were.
Yeah. I mean, we knew that we were, we had this mammoth task ahead of us, and fortunately in the lead up to it, I kind of just went into protective mode. I stayed offline, and together with my team, we had people from all around the world, offering help and trying to do their research on the channel and making suggestions on when we should go, where we should lead from. And yes, I was the person in the water, but I just want to highlight that it wasn't just me. There was all these people contributing to the success of that swim and putting their hand up to help. And that was ultimately what made it possible out there. So We swum on, I think, the 27th of, oh, I've got I might have my dates wrong, but I think it was the 27th of July. And fortunately for us, they were willing to try different things from the other group. So we were trying to set off from a little bit further up the Cape, shortening the distance, but we knew that swimming across this really powerful cross current, we weren't going to be able to go from A to B like directly from point to point. We knew at some point we'd have to go with the current and almost do a big S bend. So like you see with the English Channel, it's never, well, it's very often not a straight line going from one side to the other. So when we set off, we set off the Cape Tappy, and we were trying to go out wide to give ourselves the best opportunity to. I'd kind of need a picture to describe this on a map. We were trying to go out wide so that we could get north far enough before getting swept to the east. Because if we got swept east too quickly, we'd just hit the Cape again or get sucked back in because there's all these powerful eddies and localized currents. But that was really brutal off the beginning. The swell was coming back, bouncing back off the mainland and into the current, so it was just creating this like tumultuous surface chop, and I was just getting thrown about, up and down, side to side. It really felt like being in a washing machine, and it was so bad that within the first 30 minutes, I was already projectile vomiting. It was and quite violently, and I just, I was just thinking to myself, like, geez, what? Maybe these guys are right. Maybe this is just unswimmable. Like, I don't think I can survive this that much longer. I felt so nauseous and dizzy, and it was very difficult to find a rhythm or to maintain your stroke, because every time your arm went over, the wave would just smash into you, and your timing would go off, and that made it very difficult. And like I said with Molokai, you can do all the training in the world for the distance and for the cold or swimming at nighttime, but that is so hard to prepare for, and we had to be incredibly adaptive when we were out there. So we're swimming along, and we're starting to make a bit of progress, but I think we were covering maybe about 2.5 to 3 kilometers an hour. So again, probably about half of what I'm used to covering. And Jay Prushal, my key supporter on the boats, he's been, to 6 of the 7 Ocean 7 swims out of his own back. He was communicating messages to me, just, providing updates. They weren't necessarily rosy or positive, but, I had these guys on the boat with me, and, my mother was there, my uncle Andy. And, even though it's really tough going out there, seeing them up there on the boat, it's funny. It provides a level of comfort and reassurance that you're going through this challenge and you're not doing it alone. And that certainly helped.
And were you able to keep anything down after that? Like you said, you were vomiting after the first 30 minutes. How did you feed throughout that time? Did you continue to vomit and have that seasickness the whole way through?
So I vomited, I think, 2 or 3 times within the first 2 hours, and they were quite sizable vomits. But I felt better after each one. So I skipped a couple of feeds, stopped drinking a certain drink that was, I think, not helping the situation. Jay picked up on it very quickly, which was good, and he just made sure not to cycle that one in. because we use it a bunch of different things. But yeah, I did. I was able to handle it, and the more calm it became. So I think it took about 6 hours really until the water really died down from that, really turbulent surface chop that it was. And then that's when we started going with the current and across the channel, and going along with the current over east. So there was a little period of respite there. That was quite good. We were making decent distance, but we knew at some point we'd have to almost break out of the current again to get across to Hokkaido, and that again was a really challenging time. Jay, he communicated to me that, right, we're going to have to really work hard over these next 4 kilometers to break through another powerful eddy. And so, there's not much you can do. You just have to sort of mentally prepare and sit in for the long haul. And what made it tougher was that we knew we had this time limit to get across, this Japanese Coast Guard set limit of getting across to by 7 p.m. before nightfall. Goal to try break the world record for the cumulative time of the Ocean 7, which was 64 hours and 30 minutes, held by an incredible swimmer, Attila Manyoki, and that also worked out to be 14 hours. So everything was just kind of lining up like it was, and you couldn't make this stuff up. It was just almost meant to be, and we really had to press hard. There were some tough moments in there. Jay, I remember, I think we might have been 3 kilometers off, and Jay said, there's a good chance you might get sucked back out into the channel here because of what the localized eddies are doing. But everyone stayed so calm in that moment, which I think it really does help. You can just sense it when people are panicking, and sense when there's worry. And it was the exact opposite out there. There was a lot of people on the boat. They were all smiling. They were all relaying messages that people were sending in from around the world, messages from family, from friends. Even Attila Manyoki, the guy who held the record, sent through such a lovely message of encouragement. And, it makes such a difference. It makes a huge difference out there. And, I'm super grateful for all of that encouragement and support. It really helped, in those toughest moments. And, seeing Ishii there and Mitsushimu, they were so positive through all of the adversity that it just, their hope sort of spread and rubbed off on you. And, fortunately we did. We got across to the other side, and we really needed almost all of that time that we had available to us. We made it across at 6:02 p.m. So less than an hour to spare. It was really really down to the wire.
Like you could make a movie out of it. You've got an hour to spare. You've only got an hour and a bit up your sleeve to break the cumulative time. It's like it really comes down to that point, and something that's been such an epic journey for you over the last 12 months, for it all to come to a head and for you to be pushed to your absolute limit, and to have just the currents working against you. Like it's such a real test. It's like, how bad do you really want this? How much have you worked for it? What was that feeling like when you hit land?
Oh man, it was just this huge sense of relief. I mean, we finished on this. It was like the seawall with all these huge concrete 3-pronged bollards. So I had to it probably wasn't the safest of places to finish, but I had to kind of time it and with the waves and land on this thing. But when I got on there and scurried up to the top. It was probably the best rock I've ever seen in my life. I was so absolutely exhausted, physically, mentally, but just so proud of the team and how everyone had come together to make this thing possible, not just in Tsugaru, but the whole challenge of this last 12 months. So yeah, bursting with pride. And although I didn't want to celebrate at the time because I felt like death, I was, absolutely over the moon.
Is it a sense of relief or accomplishment, combination of both? What is it? What is that feeling?
It's a sense of, I think definitely a bit of both. I mean, when you're quite open with your goals, like you mentioned before, there's room for people to criticize or to scrutinize, and you're putting yourself out there, really exposing yourself and making yourself quite vulnerable. So for it to come together like it did, obviously there was relief there, but the reason I had been so open about what I planned to do and what I hoped to try achieve was to try bring more attention to the Ocean 7, to promote the sport, and hopefully create more awareness about the reasons why we're doing it, which was one of the big ones was to raise money for mental health and to share powerful messages around hope, courage, the importance of teamwork. And I think we over the last 12 months we have been able to do that. And one thing I will say about this, when you're being open about your goals, is yes, you might feel quite nervous and people might say that things can't be done, but on the flip side you'll get people that will stick their hand up and offer their support. And I think that's really worthwhile doing it, because these challenges, things like the Ocean 7, even doing any of these marathon swims, they're not something that you can do alone. So yeah.
Do you feel like that's having that bigger picture, that bigger reason behind it, helped get you through those tough times in the swim?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when you're really in your toughest moments, having a good reason why makes all the difference. Why are you putting yourself through this pain? Why are you going to push through this? For me, I certainly thought back to the mental health aspect of things and trying to bring awareness to a cause that's really important for everyone and is close to my heart, having suffered from depression in the past before, and having my childhood hero, my grandfather, being really impacted by it as well. But also I think I'm someone that left their swimming career feeling quite unfulfilled with the things that I'd done when I retired in 2016. I didn't feel like I'd realized my potential, and for a number of years I had felt a lot of guilt and shame, feeling that I'd let people down that had believed in me and invested time in me through my childhood and through my competitive years, my coaches, my family and friends, people that, my mum and dad, who would drive me to training in the mornings at 4 a.m, scraping ice off the car, so in a way this was also to hopefully try repay their faith, and I wanted to do it for them too. So, had all these motivators to come into this, and if you've given it your best, that was my view. If I'd given it my best, it didn't really matter what the outcome was. I knew they'd be proud.
How do you feel now, looking back at that, and you're a couple of years older now since you stopped your competitive swimming career? How's your feeling around not achieving what you wanted with your competitive swimming career, and now you've achieved this? Do you look back and think, wow, like those people that put their time and effort into me, Do you feel like they were disappointed you didn't get achieve those goals, or was it just something that you felt because you'd put in so much work and hadn't quite got there?
It's an interesting one. I mean, I think if I was to ask my parents or my coaches, I don't think they would have ever felt, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't think they would have been disappointed, but in my head, I'd built it up that I had let them down, and I think this last year has been a real good opportunity for myself to put that to bed and to move on. And if I had more successes in my pool career, things would be a lot different, and I wouldn't have done what I've done now. So we can't change the past, and I'm grateful for everything that's happened to this point, because it's made me who I am and led me to do the things that I've done. So yeah, I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite often like that, isn't it? Where a setback or a failure, it just at the time it's really hard to take, and you look at it and you go like, I'm really annoyed this has happened. But then you give it 12 months, 24 months, you can see there's a reason behind it. You can move past it, and it can lead you to greater things. And looking at what you've achieved, that I think is so much more difficult than making a national team and competing for your country. Not that that's easy, not at all. And I've got a lot of respect for those people that do achieve that. But what you've gone through, it's like, man, that to me is 2-3 times harder than making a national team. And just physically and mentally, that sort of challenge. I don't think there's a whole lot of people who could push themselves that far. So I think your record will stand for a very long time. Time will only tell, and whether it's gone next year or in 30 years' time, that doesn't really matter. The fact that you've done what you've done, and I think being able to just persist and achieve it is incredible. And as you said, I think a large part of that, looking from the outside, it's because you had a very deep drive and motivation that wasn't just about you. There's no ego involved. It's really doing it for a greater cause and for other people. And it's like swimming relays in competitive swimming. It's like people will do PBs all day in relays because they don't want to let other people down. And it seems like there's a bit of that kind of spirit in your swims.
Yeah, 100%. And I think for me, the biggest takeaway is like each of these swims is almost taught its own unique lesson. The Hawaii swim has, for example, taught the importance of having incredible support around you and having a good reason why to push through the adversity, and that adversity is needed for growth. Your lowest lows can also be your highest highs. I went into the Cook Strait with people telling me that we couldn't swim in a spring tide, and that was a great example of that it's important to get people's opinions, but do your homework and come to your own conclusion, and don't let other people set your parameters for you. Or English Channel, first time I'd ever had to wait before a swim. It's not like traditional swimming when we know down to the exact minute when we're going to be racing. There we were there for 7 days before, and we could have been swimming with 4 hours notice. And so the lesson there to focus on the things that are within your control and to be ready. Like, it's just incredible, all these sort of messages from marathon swimming, and how transferable they are to your own life. Going through something like Tsugaru, yes, it was horrendous at the time, but that's an experience I'll be able to draw from for the rest of my days. So, for me, that's been an incredible part, and the friendships and the connections made through this last year. If anything, like you say, records and stuff. Someone will beat them at some point in the future, but those experiences, they're things that no one will ever be able to take away. So.
Absolutely. Now, when you get home and you go back to normal life and you don't have this massive challenge ahead of you, and quite often get it with, when people achieve their dreams of going to the Olympics, there's often this little bit of a down period where they, how's that been for you? And have you set your sights on anything else just to give you something to work towards?
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, I think there's a huge come down or a crash. People experience it after working so long and so hard towards a goal. I think it's very natural for it to happen. And I've had a few people reach out to ask about it and to just politely remind me that it's coming. And I've had a bit of time off since Tsugaru. So Tsugaru was just over 3.5 weeks ago. I feel okay. I feel okay. I mean, I think I was ready to come to the end of that chapter and that journey. And I haven't really. I mean, it still doesn't quite feel real. It hasn't fully sunk in, which is quite funny. I haven't had too much of a crash, to be honest, which, I am ready for it when it does happen. But I think also I'm really excited about what lies ahead and opportunities with to continue doing swimming to support worthwhile causes, the things that we have going on behind the scenes in terms of mental health. We're speaking with a number of charities about bringing them together to collaborate, to create more, what's the word I'm looking for? Not holistic, but it might be holistic. Yeah, to work together, create synergies and make sure that the services provided cover all bases. And that's something that we've been working really hard over the last 12 months on, and I'm excited to continue to help with however I can. I feel there's a real opportunity there, and to continue sharing some of the messages learned from this channel, from this challenge. So, yeah, I'm not crashing because I'm just so excited about what's still to come.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, it's I think if you keep yourself moving, you keep yourself busy enough as well, you can avoid a lot of that come down. It's like a plane. It needs that speed to fly, and as soon as you stop, then it comes down. So I think you just got to keep moving. You can't just sit on the couch for a month afterwards and just relish in your achievements. You need to keep doing things. And I mean, you've got your work there and the business. And I saw you return to the pool as well this week. How's the body feel first session back?
It was a bit brutal. We didn't even swim that far. Pretty horrible, but no, I think it's been important to take some time off and to have some rest, not just from a physical point of view, but mentally too. We talk about marathon swimming being 20% physical, 80% mental, and to have some downtime for the mental, to allow yourself to mentally recover and recharge. I don't think we talk about that enough. So yeah, these last couple of weeks, my mother's been over from Scotland, been spending a bit of time with her, my sister who lives here in Perth as well, and she's got a young family, so that's been really nice. And it's just allowed me some time to recharge and come back to the pool and come back to these other endeavours with more gusto and energy. So.
Yeah. And in terms of the media after you finish, what's that been like? Because it's a bit of a fringe sport, open water swimming. It's not AFL, it's not NFL, but it's still from what I saw, there was quite a bit of media attention around it. So, like, how much of it was there interest from overseas? What sort of commitments have you had there in terms of after the event?
So it has. It's certainly picked up a lot of traction along the way, and you're right. We're not AFL, we're not soccer. We're open water swimmers, but I think when there are things that transcend the world of sport and can really connect with people, and whether it's been my swim or other people that go on and push themselves be outside their comfort zone in support of something bigger than themselves. I think that will always resonate with people. So these last couple of weeks been speaking to the BBC. They put up an article, and it's a bit wild, like seeing your face beside the likes of Greta Thunberg or Vladimir Putin on the BBC homepage. I mean, I'm just this kid from the west coast of Scotland, a sleepy fishing village, So it just doesn't add up. But that's been surreal. ESPN, a few Australian outlets. So for me to get the word out there about the sport, but I think to try share these positive messages and encourage people into swimming. I got back into swimming in 2020 during the coronavirus pandemic. After a number of years out of the water, I didn't have any plans to do crazy channel swims. For me, it was about getting into the water, having this incredible sport that could keep me fit and healthy. It was good for my mental well-being, and provided me with access to community. And I'd love to get the word out there, or to do my part to share those messages that it's a sport for everyone, and everyone can access these benefits, and it might have a good positive impact on your life if you do. So yeah, I'd encourage people to give it a try.
Well, Andy, thanks for being on the podcast, and willing to jump on here a second time after a successful 7 swims. It's been amazing watching you do what you've done, and I'm excited to see what lies ahead for you, whether it's just as crazy as what you've done, or just dial it down a little bit. Okay, thank God, because I don't know how much more wild you can go. And
I think doing the world's 7 toughest channels in the space of a year, might not guess. There might be a scratch in our heads to think of something that could top that. But no, I'd love to continue doing swims that can support worthwhile causes. I think for me, an area that captures my interest is the expedition swims, and swimming in uncharted waters, or something that no one's ever done before. So these swims, they might take, be over the course of a number of days. I'm already speaking with a few parties there about some exciting opportunities that I think we'll try to film, and really, really focus on some important causes and the benefits of the sport. So watch this space. That's probably what's next for me.
Is this like swimming with a rucksack and like by yourself, or is this going to be supported, these types of swims? Can you go into a bit more detail with them?
They'd be supported. So I think they come in different forms. There's been some great swimmers out there that have done incredible things. Guys like Lewis Pugh. He's currently swimming down the entire length of the Hudson River over in America to raise awareness around around the environment. He's a big advocate for oceans conservation and things like that. So that's something that interests me, and they would be supported. They'd be over the course of a number of days. It's not about swimming it as fast as possible, which I think for me is is nice to give the body a little bit of respite. but we'll see what happens. Like, there's still some channel swims out there, and some swims like the Manhattan Island swim and Loch Ness back in Scotland that I'd love to have a crack at some records for. So we'll see what happens. Plenty of there's no shortage of swims in the world. So if anyone listening has some ideas, feel free to shoot them through. We're open to everything at the moment.
Fantastic. Well, we'll put all the links to your socials, to donating as well to the Black Dog Institute too. And I see your following is growing massively in the last month or so that you've completed the swims. Like, it's just taken off, which is really cool too. Which gives you that bigger platform to create that awareness around these things as well.
I think it was one of the feeds videos kind of went viral. So
it had like 2 million views or something, didn't it? Are you using like a dog lead or something?
Have you seen? I mean, I had a quick look through the comments. I mean, it's obviously hard to kind of follow it, but there was all these people that were like, "This is a really cool video," until he threw the bottle back in the ocean. I'm like, it's so reckless. And I was just thinking, do you not see that it's attached to a dog leash? Like a bright yellow fluorescent dog leash?
And that's why you can't listen to comments online, right? Like, it just, you can't win.
You can't win. I mean, the internet's the internet. But, it's certainly a source of entertainment, and like you said, I think there'll be some good outcomes from that. There's a larger platform and audience out there to share these messages to, and hopefully continue to promote the sport and the paths that are available to everyone out there.
Love it, mate. Well, congratulations again, and when I do eventually get back to Perth, I'd love to catch up and meet in person, not just online. And mate, I appreciate you being on the podcast, and it's a huge thing that you've done. So I'm amazed that you've been able to get through it, mate. Congratulations.
Mate, again, thank you for having me on here, Brendan. It's been a pleasure.